Divorce is not the issue. Having a divorce per se is not going to damage a child. The issues come when there's high conflict and a parent is very negative about another parent to the child, because that child is half the other parent. So they take responsibility for things that they shouldn't. And so when that parent is saying things about the other parent, they'll think, oh, that's about me as well then, because I'm half of that parent.
Hello and welcome to the Go Encourage podcast, where I talk to real people about real life, trying to gain some insights from their experiences building courage. Before we get started, I just want to encourage you to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. It really helps the channel grow and it helps me to bring more guests onto the podcast. You can also do the same on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and Amazon with a like and a follow. And if you're looking for links to social media channels, you can find them at www.goencourage.com. You can also grab a copy of the Courage Journal, which is a 31-day prompted journal designed to help you build courage in your life. All right, with all that said, let's bring on my next guest and let's see where the conversation goes. Hello, Katie. Welcome to the Go Encourage podcast. How are you today?
I'm really good. Thank you, Rix. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm good. I'm really excited that you agreed to come on today. I just want to let everyone know who's listening or watching online that you are Dr Katie Barge and you are a child psychologist. So I'm really pleased that you're going to bring some insights to my audience today. Thank you.
Oh, I'm really excited. Thank you.
All right, let's kick it off with the first question. It's a bit of a tradition on the podcast. Katie, do you know what your first name means?
I know that it means something around being pure of heart, pure of spirit, but that's all I know, to be honest with you.
Okay, all right. I did a little bit of research as well. I'm going to share that with you.
Yeah.
So the four things that come up, it's a derivative of the name Catherine. So the four things that come up are inner clarity, moral integrity. I wonder if any of this resonates with you. Soft strength and quiet resilience.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I like the soft strength bit. Yeah. Like it.
Okay.
And quiet resilience as well. I can vibe with that. That's a good one.
You can vibe with that. Excellent. Okay. And it comes from, I think it comes from the Greek word, and it's often linked with purity, which I think links to what you were saying.
I think that's what I picked up on. I was doing a quick scan and I thought, oh, that'll do.
And then the last thing, sorry, this is like a little bit of a deep dive on your name now, but it says, this is more from a spiritual perspective.
Yes.
As a person aligned with Katie energy is often seen as someone who acts from authentic intention, clear motives, clean spirit, honest presence. There you go.
Oh, I love that. That's all about my brand values, so I'm happy with that.
I was going to say it absolutely aligns with what you do, isn't it?
It does actually. Yeah, no, I'm really pleased to hear that.
All right. Well, I thought we could do a little bit of a warming up, just so the audience gets to know you a little bit. What is your favourite food?
Do you know what is pizza? I'm just going to be honest.
Pizza. Any particular topping or straight whatever?
As long as it's really nice quality, like proper Italian, authentic sourdough base, I'm not fussy on the topping, but it has to be a really nice, high quality, done in a pizza oven type pizza.
Nice. All right. Like it. Okay. Cats or dogs?
Oh, I like both. Cats.
Cats for the win. Okay. YouTube or Spotify?
YouTube. Don't really go on Spotify much.
Okay. All right. Instagram or TikTok?
Oh, definitely Instagram. Not
Lovely.
a fan of TikTok. Yeah. TikTok's too noisy for me.
It is a bit noisy, isn't it? Let's be fair. Early bird or night owl?
Neither. If I had to choose, night owl.
Neither, you say?
No, I'm not great in the mornings and I'm not great in the night time. So
middle of the day?
Middle of the day is fine. Yeah, late morning, spot on.
Yeah, okay, fair. Favourite season?
Spring. Love spring. Love the lambs, the bunnies, the flowers. Yeah, favourite season by far.
Are you a dress up or a dress down sort of person?
Definitely dress up person. Yeah. So I was born in the wrong era. I would have liked to have been born in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, because I just love the fashion and the formal wear. And I think everyone just looked fabulous.
Well, technically we're in the 20s now, right?
Yeah.
So you can bring it all back.
Definitely.
And then a song that a song that you're loving right now, something that's sort of playing in your head.
Oh gosh, it's that really awful one by, is it the K-pop Demon Hunters, Golden? I know it's from last summer. That's all I hear. My girls are into K-pop Demon Hunters, so yeah. And it is quite it's an upbeat tune, it's a happy tune, so yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah, my kids can't stand it, but my nieces love it. And so, it's quite catchy, isn't it? The way that they play those forward codes.
Absolutely.
Okay, a place in the world that you love.
Oh, I'm going to go with the Italian theme. Italy. Love Italy. I probably lived there in a past life or something. Love it.
Right. Okay. Nice. I was on a call yesterday with someone who's going to come on the podcast later on, and we were chatting away, and I didn't realise he's based in Rome. So he's from the UK, but he lives in Rome now, and he's like, I'm loving it. I'm like, yeah, so good, so good.
Oh, it's beautiful. Everywhere in Rome is just like a museum. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, definitely one of my favourite places that I visited, Rome. And the food, right? Oh my gosh, so good.
It's amazing.
Get your high quality pizzas, right, Katie?
Yes,
there you go.
Exactly.
Star sign?
Leo,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I'm a Leo. I don't think I'm a typical Leo. I'm quite into astrology, so a lot of my chart is very water-based, so quite emotional, gentle. But yeah, I've definitely got that Leo as my sun sign. How about you? What's your star sign?
I'm a Sagittarian, actually.
Okay, cool. Are you a typical Sagittarian?
I'm on the Scorpio cusp. So, I bring all the rebellious cheekiness, all the kind of naughtiness from that side, but then from the Sagittarian, that sort of aspect of exploration, adventure, curiosity, philosophy, all of that kind of stuff. But I think I'm well trained in being organized and committed and integrity and things like that. So I don't think I'm that aloof. At least I don't think that. I don't know. You'll have to ask my friends. But they vibe. I think it's the Leo, Sagittarian, and Aries energy, isn't it? Those three are.
Yeah, because they're fire signs. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, what's one guilty pleasure that you secretly enjoy?
Yeah, so Netflix, when I get a chance, and I don't feel that guilty about it because I'm so busy with work and kids and stuff, I probably have to actively seek out my guilty pleasures. So any box sets on Netflix.
Okay, all right. I mean, what kind of things do you like to watch?
The last one, it was quite a while ago now, but it was One Day. It was that romance one. It was the adaptation of the book and the film with Leo Woodle in it and some other people. I really liked that.
All right. Cool. And is there a book or a film or a TV show that you would recommend to people? Like, is that the top of your list?
Oh, gosh, there's so many. So many. I'm so geeky. A lot of my stuff is like psychological based. I love anything that Dr. Gabor Mate does. So he did something called The Wisdom of Trauma, and there was a kind of series on that. There was also one with Tony Robbins that I watched a couple of years ago that I loved. I can't remember the name of it. And then there was another thing, I think it was on Netflix or Amazon Prime, which is all about the blue zones and how people living in the blue zones live so long and what it is that helps them to have such amazing longevity. So I love things like that. I'm quite geeky. I like programs that integrate research and things like that into them.
I might throw in one last one just for fun. Christmas or Easter?
Oh, do you know what? I'm a bit of a Scrooge. I'm going to say Easter. I find Christmas with two youngish children quite stressful. I love it. It's magical. But Easter, because it's in spring, I definitely think I've got some form of seasonal affective disorder. So I'm just a lot happier by the time Easter comes. I love Christmas and it's pretty with the lights, but I find it super stressful because as a mum, as a dad, it's us who bring the magic for Christmas and there's a lot of pressure. So I think I'm one of my only friends who really loves it when we get to January because I'm like, I can relax now. But I do love it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like Christmas should be limited for like 2 weeks. That's it. Because the whole build up for months and all the stuff, it's like, No,
I get the Christmas dread, to be honest with you. I am a bit of a Grinch.
Well, you're in good company. All right, let's talk a little bit about your origins, your journey. Can you share a little bit about your upbringing, where you grew up?
Yeah, so I live in Gloucestershire now, and I grew up in Gloucester. Parents separated when I was 5. I lived in quite a busy family, so I did have regular contact with my dad. So I would see him on a Thursday and on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
I had 4 older sisters. I was the youngest of them. So yeah, it was a really busy household, and there were some really good fun times, but there were also, because I've got a sensitive nervous system, looking back now with hindsight, I can see why I would have found that quite a stressful environment to grow up in. You know, we weren't living in poverty as such, but we were definitely at the lower end of working class. And I didn't realise what a struggle it was until I'm now an adult and I look back and I think, gosh, that must have been really stressful for my mum.
Did that give you a greater, I don't know, level of empathy maybe for your parents? Because I think sometimes, you know, we can be quite hard on them.
Absolutely. I feel personally I'm in a really great space where I've moved through that whole cycle of, you know, your parents causing trauma or whatever, as we all do as parents, let's be honest. I'm at a place of compassion for my parents, and it's a really, really freeing place to be. And it's taken me a long time to get to that place. But now I see how hard it was for both of them and what they went through to provide as much as they could for me. And I'm really grateful for that, you know. So yeah, it has made me have a lot of respect for them and what they had to sacrifice for me and my sisters.
Yeah. And do you find, like, you know, I'm a parent as well, like when you become a parent, you start to realize that your parents didn't have a manual either. You know, they were just trying to do the best that they could with what they had in front of them and the resources that were available.
Absolutely. And, you know, before I had children, there were lots of things my parents did that I would say, you know, I'd never do that. And I have done those things, you know, because I'm a human being and I'm fallible and I make mistakes. And yeah, it's just made me feel a lot more compassion for them and a lot more understanding that we're all just trying our best. Like most people, most parents, whatever generation they are, tried their best with what they had at the time. And I think that's a really freeing place to be.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. And then in terms of siblings and things like that, people you grew up with, friends, good crowd?
It was lovely. Do you know what? My early years, they were so lovely. I had a best friend that lived across the road to me, and it was like typical 80s, 90s upbringing. We'd chat to each other through the window at night time, and our parents tell us to get to bed. And obviously there were no phones and screens and things like that. So she would just knock on the door for me to see if I was there. And if not, that's fine. If I was, then we'd go out and play. And we used to spend hours and hours and hours, you know, it's cliche, but just playing outside in the summer until the lights would come on in the street, and then we'd know it's time to go home. And it was really, really lovely. I went to a lovely primary school. I had some great friends. So yeah, I've got really fond memories. And even though it was stressful at times with my sisters and them being big personalities, there was a lot of fun to be had there as well. I always felt that there was someone there for me and that there was someone to play with and have fun with. So I have got some really nice memories of that.
Oh, that's great. And then in terms of, you mentioned your sisters there, are you, what's the pecking order?
Yes, so I'm the bottom. I'm the runt of the litter. So yeah, my oldest sister, the eldest is 14 years older than me, and then it kind of goes down from there. So I was very close to my sister. Well, we still are close, who's 3 years older than me, because we've got more in common.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing that. And then when you look back at that time, what do you think shaped you most? Looking back now, obviously you've got some hindsight now. What do you think shaped you into doing what you do now?
I think I've thought a lot about this, and I've now realised that kind of all roads lead to Rome. So growing up, I loved the spiritual aspect of things. I loved crystals. I loved creating things. I loved learning about Pilates and yoga, even from a really young age. I remember for Christmas, I must have been 12 or 13, a book about Pilates. So I've always been interested in wellness and being the most healthy, well selves that we can be. But I think because I grew up not with hardly any money in our family, that there's this, it affects your self-worth a little bit. Not so much when you're really young, but as you get older and you see that actually some people have it a bit easier and they have nicer cars and all of those kind of material things. As a child, it's really hard to see that life's not all about the material, and you start to internalise that it's around, oh, maybe it's because I'm not worthy of those things, you know? So it impacted me in the fact that I worked really, really hard with my exams, with my GCSEs, with my A-levels, because even at a young age, I was quite strategic. And I thought, I really want to get into a good university because I know that if I can do that, then I can, obviously it's different now with entrepreneurs, you don't have to go to university. But back then in the late 90s, it's like, to make anything of yourself, you've got to go to university. That was the cultural doctrine. And so that's what I did. And that was, you know, as a pure consequence of my upbringing. But it was very much, the psychology was about wellness for me. It was about understanding myself, healing myself, and learning at the same time. Like a lot of people say, you know, it's closet therapy when you do a psychology course, and it absolutely is, you know. Yeah.
And so was there a particular reason when you went into psychology specifically? Because it sounds like, you know, you were interested in quite a wide variety of things in the wellness space.
I was just always really fascinated about how the mind worked. And for me personally, I was kind of the black sheep of the family because I'm very sensitive and because, you know, looking back now with all of the things that we know about neurodiversity, now I can think, well, I was a bit neurodiverse, and that was why I struggled with sensory issues like sound and lights and all of those kinds of things. But I'll be honest with you, I just grew up thinking there was something wrong with me. Why I was so reactive all the time and I couldn't cope with, you know, my resilience seemed to be so low. And I just really wanted to understand myself better. And I suppose that is, you know, it didn't really even get solved when I did my psychology degree or even after that. It's come with just growing up, understanding, and then having children and understanding more through that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and then what does life look for you now? You've referred to your children there. What's your family unit look like?
Yeah, so it's myself, my husband. I've got two daughters, one who's nearly 11 and one who is 6. And, you know, they're quite quirky, a little bit neurospicy. And so I feel really privileged that I had that opportunity to really understand child development and child psychology. It doesn't make me a perfect mum by any stretch of the imagination, you know.
What? I mean, that's why I brought you on. I thought you were going to, you know, give us all your perfect strategies.
You know, you know, for example, I'm a workaholic and I've got to work on that because my children suffer because of that. But I'm aware of it. I feel like I'm aware of where I need to keep an eye out. And so that's really helped me. And with my eldest in particular, she's struggled with school and she's struggled with environments and she's extremely sensitive, probably more so than me. And so I've found that my kind of background in psychology has really helped me kind of understand her a bit better. I'm still learning, to be honest. I think having children is what's made me learn the most about life. So yeah. It's things are good, they're not perfect, and I see my children as my biggest teachers, really.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I think it's incredible the reflection that they have on you know, obviously two parents there, and you go, oh, what is going on? And then when you look at yourself, you're like, oh, that's me. I've led that, I've done that.
Yeah. And it's that Taylor Swift song, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me. Like, when things are going wrong in the house, I know that it's an issue with the adults. I know it's not the kids causing the issues. Yes, they can be a pain in the bum, but if we're not regulated, then it's going to impact them. And I see that every single day in my house.
I think there's something in that, isn't there? That, you know, as adults, we want peace, we want joy, we want happiness for our children. And maybe there's this romantic idea that that's going to be like that every day or as many days as possible. But actually, you know, when children, I mean, mine are tweens, right? And teens, when they're in that space, when they're at home, you know, they feel safe enough to actually push back and push the boundaries and, you know, break rules and, you know, treat you badly and all the rest of it. And it's, I guess as parents, it's for us to kind of ground ourselves and not take it too personally and try and be the anchor for them, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, I feel really privileged that my children can be their most awful selves with me. And my youngest in particular, some of her insults to me, they are quite funny. I try not to laugh in front of her because it makes it worse. But it's just to not take it personally. And then when she's calmed down, I'll have a chat with her about, you know, boundaries around the words we use. But actually, I'd rather her say those things to me than, you know, people at school or teachers.
Yeah, for sure. And it's about, I mean, I've got 3, so I have to keep reminding myself they're all different human beings.
Yes.
You can't keep lumping them together. You know, if one of them is having a bit of a wobble, I'm gonna say they, so they don't know which one I'm talking about if they ever listen back to this. But that particular one might want to have it all out there and then talk through it, get the logical and the emotional, you know, reassurance, etc. Whereas a different one, another one, would be like, I need space. I need an hour away from this, or half an hour. And then they seem to regulate themselves, come back and say, oh yeah, I was a bit out of order before, Dad. Can we, you know, repair? Absolutely, we can. You know, so it's kind of like trying to tailor to the personality, which can always be a challenge.
Absolutely, which sounds like you're doing amazingly.
I mean, it doesn't feel like that when you're in the moment, right?
No, never does.
But journaling helps, I think, as an adult. I think it helps to kind of like just process what's gone on and how you can show up better the next time, or any lessons learned that you keep reinforcing moving forward.
Definitely. You know, yesterday I went through this with my kids. They were playing up something chronic last night. But it was because I was really, really busy with work, and, you know, it made me think about, I need to restructure my time when I'm at home with them a little bit better. So I think as long as you've always got that kind of way of reflecting, whether that's through journaling or just taking time to go away and think about what might be going on there, is really, really positive.
Yeah. Okay. And then in terms of any routines, practices, rituals that help you stay grounded or courageous, is there anything that you'd like to share as insights that have helped you in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of guided meditation with myself. So, and kind of sounds woo-woo, but energy protection, you know, as an empath, we take on a lot of people's stuff, as I'm sure you do as well. And it's just, the mind is so powerful, it doesn't know the difference between imagined and reality. So I just imagine myself in like a titanium bubble with a lovely colour at the beginning of each day, and I connect down and I just ask for clarity. And I have a set way, you know, I do it every single day. Sometimes I do it 3 times a day. For example, if I'm going to 3 different types of school, I have to go to one school, do it, come out of there, kind of do like a internal cleanse, go back in with the protection. And I do it throughout the day, because if I didn't do that, I would just be on the floor by the time I got home.
Yeah, for sure. That's really interesting, because I think even in prayer, in the prayer world, there are certain prayers you can speak over yourself. Lord, protect me as I go into, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I really like what you said there. I found that really interesting. It's like your mind can't tell the difference between you imagining and reality. So having that as a, I guess the word is manifestation around you is a powerful thing, isn't it? Because this is more amazing than, well, I'm telling a psychologist that, oh my gosh, right?
No,
but like, this is like
so
the most powerful thing, isn't it?
It really is. And, you know, neuroscience proves that if we imagine playing the piano, the same region of the brain is firing than if we're actually playing the piano. So that guided visualization is so powerful. Some people might call it placebo. That's absolutely fine. Even placebo is showing us how powerful the brain is, you know. In fact, it is placebo because we're imagining it. So yeah, it's really, really powerful, and I do it every day.
And you touched on something there. I think it's really interesting that people will, you know, ridicule stuff because it doesn't make sense, or it's not scientifically backed, or whatever. And I think when all is said and done, and you've lived your life and you look back, you know, we're trying to find meaning in things, right? So if something works for you, like it works for you. Does it need to be, you know, proven that everyone has to be on the same page? I don't know.
this is it. It's about having an open mind, and what works for you might not work for me, and vice versa. And it's about, it's exactly that. It's about finding what works for you.
Yeah, for sure. Katie, do you know your love languages? Have they been helpful to you on your journey?
Yes, so I'm really aware of my love languages are very typically feminine ones. So tactile, hugs, cuddles, words of affirmations. I love getting gifts for people. I'm always sending people flowers. I give out what I love back, basically, which is quite egotistical. My husband's love languages are very different to mine. So his love language is making sure I've eaten okay, fixing things, fixing technology.
So like an acts of service type
Absolutely.
vibe.
He's definitely an act of service. And I have to keep reminding myself of that, because sometimes when he's not the best listener, he does lovely things for me with my car and things, he'll take my car and get it done in the MOT and things like that. And I have to remember that that's his way of showing me love. Because if I forget about those things, I can get really frustrated. But just because he hasn't got the same love languages as me, I've got to accept that and work with it, really.
Yeah, I love that. I love that awareness. I wouldn't say it's egotistical, though, to give the same love language out. I think it's just natural, isn't it? You kind of, if you deep down think that is how you receive love, then obviously you're going to give it the same way as well, because you feel
it just comes more natural to me.
Yeah. Well, you said gifts, right? So I've got you a gift. I've got you a copy of the Courage Journal, which is a journal that I've authored that helps you build courage over 31 days. So I'll definitely get one in the post to you, and I'd love to get your feedback on it and see how it's helped you on your courage building adventures.
Amazing. Thank you very much. I look forward to receiving that.
You're very welcome. All right. And then in terms of like a spiritual framework, you've kind of sort of referenced spirituality a little bit in our little chat here. I think you said woo-woo a couple of times as well. Is there a belief system that you subscribe to, or you quite just kind of go with the flow? I think you mentioned crystals there a little bit.
I'm very, very open-minded. I wouldn't even want to put a label on it, because I'm into all religions. And I'm into no religion, if that makes sense. I have a faith, but that's not linked to any particular religion. It's linked to a belief in, if you want to call it God, or for me, I like to call it source, or just love, basically. And I think I love learning about other religions, and I think there's a place for all of them.
Okay, all right. And do you feel that helps ground you? Like, I think you were talking earlier on about, just having that mindset of like, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to be protected, etc. Is that kind of linked to the same sort of vibe?
Absolutely, definitely grounds me. I think I suppose nature could be my spiritual practice, in that sense of containment and groundedness, and the fact that we are all part of nature. I think for my own process and healing, I moved to live in a semi-rural place, and that has been by far the most therapeutic support I've ever given myself. So absolutely that. But also it does come back to that faith that, when things go quote unquote wrong for me, or I don't get a particular opportunity, I am very philosophical about it, and I think it wasn't right for me. That obviously wasn't right for me. That was not in alignment with me. Otherwise I would have got it. So I think it's helped my life being connected spiritually. Just makes me a happier person.
Okay. Oh, I like that. It just makes me a happier person. Yeah, that's great. All right. And then what made you come on the podcast today? What was it that got you over the line?
I love your ethos. I love what you're all about. I love that, you strike me as a very conscious person who's able to reflect on your life journey. And I love the notion of courage, because it's so important. And I think we kind of know what it means on a very surface level, but embodying it in our lives is really, really hard to do. So I think what you're doing is incredible, and it will help so many people be true to themselves and live a life that actually feels aligned to them.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the idea that anything that we do takes a level of courage if we want growth. Yeah, whatever that looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think courage is definitely on my agenda this year. You know, a lot of the guided visualizations I've been doing, I keep getting a lion in it, which is courage. And I've talked about courage for the past couple of years because I haven't been embodying it. And for me, courage is just about following your heart. That's, to me, that's what courage is all about. No matter what, following what feels right for you, in spite of all of the difficulties and noise and other people, but keeping true to yourself. To me, that's courage.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because we can be stuck in the logicness of it all, the logical approaches to, if I do that, then that will be good. And this thing in front of me is not very good, but in order to do it, then I'm going to get the outcome later on. But actually, there is a heart element to courage, isn't there? Like this moment of inspiration, you know, that 20 seconds of courage that just changes your life. So I definitely align with that.
Definitely. And I think, and children, again, working with children, they're so much more courageous than us adults. They're so much more experimental. They've got less to lose. They haven't really had as many knockbacks as the adults. And so I draw my inspiration from the children that I work with and how courageous they are and some of the things that they've been through. And I think, well, if they are walking through the fire, so to speak, being true to themselves, then so can I. So,
Yeah, and hats off to them, right? It's a scary world. Like, I love reminiscing about the 80s and the 90s as well. But we didn't have half of the stuff being thrown at us in terms of information overload, in terms of like judgment, social media, people filming you at every angle, you know, and you're not being able to get away with just being silly, you know, and then that haunting you, you know, all of those things. We didn't really have that.
No, we didn't. And I think, I could go on to a whole nother topic about social media, but, you know, that's why I try and shield my children as much as possible when it comes to smartphones and things like that, because I think I just want them to be their most authentic selves. And I think that is really what courage is about. It's about showing up, doing the hard things, even when it's really difficult, and growing. So,
Yeah. And so what does the word courage mean to you? What comes to mind?
It's that lion heart. It's that connection to be brave and to whatever that means for you. So it's doing what feels right, even when it's so difficult. So, for example, it might be in a meeting, or I don't know, at a school, when I'm advocating for my own children. And the non-courageous thing to do is to keep the harmony and to people please and to not cause problems. And I think for women, this is a big thing as well. But the courageous thing to do is to speak up, and to sometimes that will mean ruffling feathers. You know, I think courage for me is about following my path, even if it may upset some people, because I know I'm not doing any harm. So it's just showing up for myself. That to me is what courage is, in my truest, rawest self.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. And then in terms of seeing courage in the children, just linking to what you were saying earlier on, there is an element of that within them as well, isn't there? Just showing up in their authentic self, because they don't have to worry. I mean, there's obviously so many layers, but one layer, if I can unpack, is you're not worrying about paying bills, right? They're not worrying about making mortgage payments. They're not worrying about, protecting it. So they've got that freedom, that creativity to really express themselves.
Yes. And that is what's so inspiring. And they don't mind sticking out like a sore thumb, or most of them. And I think that gets chipped away at us as we get older, because we get responsibilities and we have mortgages to pay and bills to pay and things like that. And I think that the courage that I've shown, in terms of building my business and the things that I truly believe in, to other people, they would see that as really irresponsible, as really foolish. And I will kind of die on that hill, because I think, well, at least I tried. I tried my best to get this off the ground, do whatever I wanted to do, put whatever I wanted out into the world. Even if it fails, I tried, and I'll get back up and do something else. To me, that's courage. And I think it's something that I want to instill in my children. And whether that courage, involves taking risks, which I think courage does, then so be it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I've run a business myself as well, and putting yourself out there is not the easiest thing to do. And when you do get people's critiques, and I, to be honest, I quite welcome it. I quite like feedback generally as a person, but that can come with lots of opinions, lots of projections, fears that people have where they don't feel like they can do what you're doing, and therefore they feel like they need to project that onto you, and there comes maybe from within some resilience that rises up to say, well, actually, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, does it? What matters is my vision and what I'm trying to achieve. And actually, if I can stay on that and not turn around and sort of be defensive to all of this stuff, actually, you could actually get somewhere. You can actually reach your goals. And I think that's a courageous thing to do. It's really powerful, regardless of what business you're running, what you're trying to do, whatever your goal is.
Absolutely. And I love how Gabor Mate simplifies this dynamic that we have of attachment with people we love and our community versus authenticity, because the more authentic we become and the more courageous we become, the more it has the potential to negatively impact our attachments. And I've definitely seen that, working for myself and building up a profile. I've lost a lot of people, and that's hard. It is really hard. So courage, it does come with a lot, in my view, it comes with a certain element of loss, and you've got to be prepared for that. But actually, the people in my life are the right people, and the freedom that you get from being courageous and authentic is worth more than attachments based on a false self.
Yes. Yeah, otherwise you're kind of like you're in this sort of trapped state, and you're not lifting your head up above the ground because you just don't want to be seen. But actually, your heart's breaking on the inside because you might have a calling or a purpose or something to drive towards. And I guess seeing yourself in that in present time is a challenge to go, I've got the chance to do this. I don't want to be 30 years down the line looking back and go, oh, I have some other issues now that are stopping me, and I wish I had, taken my chance when I did.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. And then in terms of like any experiences that come to mind when you had to dig deep and be courageous, is there anything you could like to share with the audience today?
I think just a really simple one of, I didn't appreciate at the time how much courage it took me to leave my full-time job to pursue and work for myself. And in 2016, I handed my notice in, and I had my first daughter, and I got scared. And so I went back to my full-time job. And then in 2018, I was like, no, this isn't right. I still had that calling, And so that took a lot of courage for me as well. And I suppose it hasn't been one thing necessarily. I think I've just built strength, resilience, courage, however you want to say it, along the way. In the last couple of years, turning up live on social media, that was something 5 years ago I never would have been able to do. I was so self-critical. I was so scared of people judging me. So I made a real effort last year to turn up live pretty much every week. And that took a lot of courage. That took me to dig deep. And for some people, that's nothing. It's just like you turn up live. But I went through a lot. So it brought up a lot of issues for me around that. So that's one thing as well.
And what kind of issues would you, please feel free to only share what you're comfortable sharing, but what kind of things were going through your head in terms of like, why was that a challenge?
So, showing up live for me was really about a visibility wound. It was around fear of judgment, fear of being judged. It was a form of social anxiety, really. And I think, weirdly, once I had been judged and people had said comments, I was over it, So I think as a woman, it's like how you look on camera. There's a fear of judgment there, but there's a fear of judgment about what you might say. But again, it comes back to authenticity, because I really believed the things I was saying, and I was coming from a kind place and from a place of love. Then I thought, if people want to choose to be offended by the topics that I'm talking about, that's on them, because I know I'm coming from a really clean place. So I think that gave me a lot of resilience from going through that process.
Purity of heart, some might say, Katie.
Yes, there we are. My family might disagree with that one, but yeah.
And do you feel like that fear of visibility comes from somewhere? Like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to do a deep dive psychological lesson on your flaws, but I think a lot of people can relate. A lot of people can relate to not wanting to be seen for fear of judgment. And some people track it back to maybe childhood, maybe bullying, maybe being on stage once and messing up their lines. All sorts of things.
I think all sorts of things. I think I grew up in a family where pretty much everyone was quite self-critical. And that was absorbed by me. Not necessarily critical about me or my looks or anything like that, but I just picked up on that self-criticism. And then there was a bit of bullying at school. So I still have got a club foot, and there was occasional comments and things like that. Not horrendously bullied, but it all goes in, doesn't it? And I think because I'm sensitive temperament, I'm so aware of how I'm perceived by the people. When I'm in a room with someone, I can pick up on their energy straight away and think, I might have said something that's annoyed them there. That I was just, all of these things just kind of aggregated to get me in a real tiz about turning up online. In person, I'm fine. Like, I'm okay on a stage. I'm okay. It's online for some reason. It's really bizarre.
And then when you are online doing this stuff, it's you yourself, right? Like here we're having a conversation.
Yes.
But is it you yourself talking to the camera?
Yeah, I think it was the lack of ability to control when you turn up on a live, because anyone can come on and say anything. And, when that happened a few times, and you do get the odd funny comment and things, you just learn the skills to move on from it. And, I always come back to, like, no one's going to die. Like, no one's coming at me, touch wood, with an axe or anything. Like, this fear is irrational. It's not real. And so putting that in a little box and just being like, okay, I see you and we'll deal with you later, and just getting on with it really helped me.
I've never done one, never done a live.
No.
Maybe I'll already I can see my body language. I'm like, I've never done one. I'm feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah. They are scary. Lives are really scary. And I actually had some lovely comments from, people I've known over the years saying, wow, you do turning up and doing those lives. I don't know how you do it. So that was nice to hear. But yeah, I think I need to do a live. I haven't done one for ages, so I need to get back on the horse.
Okay, all right, cool. I'll look out for it.
Yeah,
maybe we'll do a joint one day. That'd be cool.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I'd love that, definitely.
Yeah, maybe on my Instagram I can ask people if they've got any questions that they want to ask you, and then we can like aggregate them and do them at the same time. Yeah, that'd be cool. All right. And so with that, on that journey, and we're talking to other people who are out there trying to maybe build their businesses in the same way. Maybe it's just a passion project like this is for me. I wonder if there's been anything that you have found that has helped you to get over that. Like, is there any particular mindset that you have? Like you said, you turn up in purity, clarity of heart. Your intention's good. You're passionate about your topic. Would you say that is the cornerstone of turning up, or would you say there's a couple of little tricks that you have up your sleeve to kind of keep you on that track?
I think there's some really superficial things that could be seen as vacuous that really help me. So if just having my hair done, or if I feel good by what I'm wearing, then that will exude in my energy as well. So, other people might not think that, but as long as I feel like that, that's all that matters. And I think, it comes back to, I know what I know. I'm an expert in my field. You're an expert in your field, in your, whether it's a passion project or whatever, then I'm quite secure in that. If someone asked me to do some talking on something, I don't know, cyber security or whatever, I would be dreadful. But because I live and breathe what I do, it's like I don't mind people asking me questions or challenging me. I'm quite secure in myself in that sense.
We had a few tech issues during this podcast, and you were saying that when you touch technology, it just falls apart. So you in cybersecurity would be really interesting.
I'm banned from photocopiers in most offices.
To be fair, photocopiers and printers, they're from the devil anyway, aren't they?
They're just awful.
They just don't behave at all. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then in terms of the work that you do, so you're a child psychologist,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
then you're going into schools and
mm-hmm,
you're working with children and things like that. What would you say, before we kind of unpack some of the common
mm-hmm,
themes that you
mm-hmm,
work with, what would
mm-hmm.
you say you've learned about yourself doing that?
Oh, good question. That there is a difference between having empathy. I've always identified as an empathetic person, um, but there's a difference between pity and empathy. And I think sometimes I can slip into the pity where some of the children I meet have been through such horrendous things, and I'm in it with them. And that's not helping anyone. True empathy is when you're kind of a little bit step removed and you can come from a really clear space in your head. Whereas before I used to think, no, I've got to be in it with them. I've got to be experiencing their feelings with them. And it would be normal for me to feel very tearful after seeing children. But now I see that's not what's best for the child. What's best for the child is if I'm in a really grounded space where I can support them in empathy, not in the pity.
Yeah. Okay. And did you find that out or come upon that realization early on, or did it take some time to get there?
It's taken me a long time because I used to think that what I class now as kind of real empathy, I thought that was maybe aloofness, because as an empath, you feel other people's feelings. And so there's almost like a part of me that wanted to feel that. I felt that if I wasn't feeling their feelings as well, I wouldn't be able to help them. But that's not the case. So I've had to learn that through bitter experience, really, of just being so drained and so close to burnout that I've had to do something to stop. So that was what I came to in my head.
Mm. And do you find like things like CPD sessions and supervision and things like that really help kind of take that
Definitely.
off? Yeah. Okay.
Definitely. I think anyone who is in a kind of therapeutic or coaching capacity has to have some form of supervision for safeguarding for yourself, but most importantly for the clients, and having been able to reflect on what's working with children or adult clients and what's not working is really, really, really important. I don't think you can do that on your own.
I think you're right. I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you think you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's an investment. There's costs involved. And, it worries me that there's private practitioners out there who maybe not have regular supervision. I don't know. But one thing I always say to someone when they're looking for a therapist or a psychologist is make sure they're having regular supervision. Ask them about their supervision.
And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. So as a parent who wants to work with someone like yourself, what should they look for? So should they be asking a therapist or a potential therapist, what are your credentials? What's your experience? Things like that. Do you have supervision? What kind of language could you give them?
I think it's all about starting off doing your research online. And, if they say they're registered with a certain body, check. There's ways to check. They should have their registration numbers. For example, I'm registered with the Health and Care Profession Council, HCPC. Check that, that's true. And then once you've got to a point where you think you've seen the credentials and you think, okay, this person could be a right fit for me, just getting on a call with them like this and getting a feel for them. There's lots of amazing psychologists and therapists out there that just might not be a good personality fit for you.
Yeah.
Because, we are human and we're not robots, and we bring our stuff as well. And you kind of almost have to get out of your logical mind into your feeling mind of, does this person feel safe for me or my children? And if there's any element of doubt there, then you don't go with that person. It's about safety at its core.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Really good point.
And I've had that with midwives, for example. When I was pregnant with my second daughter, I had a midwife. She just wasn't giving me the kind of empath vibes that I was looking for. And so I switched midwives. I asked to switch because there was nothing wrong with her. She was perfectly capable, perfectly qualified, and she wasn't a bad person or anything like that. She was not vibing with me. And so I dealt with it very quickly.
Yeah. And I'm a big advocate for men's health. And so for me, trying to get some people that I've worked with into, or signpost them to therapy, I should say, it's a difficult enough pitch to begin with. But then when they have gone and they're not met with maybe warmth or empathy, or maybe not even those things, maybe they want it a little bit more clinical and more logical, whatever. My I guess unasked for advice to them is just see if you gel. Like if you're going to hang out with a friend, right? You don't just hang out with everyone. You have an energy about it. So that's the same thing with therapists as well. If you feel like that first initial chemistry call isn't right for you, then just move on. It's all right. It's not the end of the world. Like you can go in a different direction. Because I think some people that I know have gone, they've had maybe a session or two and said, oh, this doesn't work for me, therefore I'm closing the door on all therapy in the future because it's something that I've done and I don't need to go down that road again. That's something that happens in the men's space. I'm sure it happens on both sides. So I don't want to make it a gender problem, but just from my experience working with men, and then it's a matter of going, look, go again, try again. Like let's it's therapy is an amazing thing.
You have to kiss a few frogs as therapists to get to the good ones. I've had some, because I've had to have a lot of therapy myself doing my job, and some I've just thought, I don't actually think that therapist likes me. And whether she did or didn't, if I'm feeling that, that's not going to work. So, like, you're absolutely right. You've just got to try again and go with someone who, recommendations are always good. So with men, other recommendations that's going to be really powerful, I think. I know it's difficult. Men don't like to seek it out typically. I'm being really generalising here. But if they know that someone is a safe person, then that helps as well.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, if boys in your work that you're doing, do you see that in young boys as well?
Yeah. So I often get, particularly with the boys that I see, where they've tried kind of in-house therapy with the school counsellor or the school pastoral lead, haven't really gelled, and so they've, exactly like you said, it's not really for them. This isn't for me. And then I work with them, and you just got to find common ground. I think as a therapist and psychologist, it's our job to find a common ground with that, whoever we're working with. And it doesn't take them long. Again, it sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but because I've prioritised really getting to know what interests them, even if it's not interesting at all to me. So, for example, Roblox or something,
yeah,
whatever
Roblox.
It is, I will go and research it and find out a bit about it because it's important to them. And I think as a psychologist and therapist, that's really key. And I think that can get a little bit overlooked.
Yeah, great point. This came up in supervision this week, actually. And a couple of the practitioners I work with, they were saying, they'll find some kind of touch point where they can go, what does that mean? And then you can draw from that in terms of analogy or trying to relay a message,
Absolutely. It's really, really important. So I think, I'm sorry, I can't remember what the question was now, but yes, having common ground is super important.
Yeah. It was just, I guess my curiosity was around like me working with men, but what are young boys, do they mirror that same thing? Because I guess you are modeling behavior, right? You are influenced by the role models that you are around. Yeah. And so if you are around men who are closed emotionally, then maybe that is seen as the norm and I shouldn't do that either. Whereas I think we referred to it earlier on, it's an information age. We're getting a lot of information, but also the positives of that is that we can, be careful with my wording, not re-educate, but we can access more education around mental health. And that's a powerful thing. And we're seeing that at maybe our generation below, but it's the next one after that, to see what kind of positive impacts that's going to have on them in terms of their own emotional intelligence.
I think especially for men and boys, I know for my own husband, in the psychology space, we call it psychoeducation. And whether that is through AI or whatever, it's really, really positive and powerful as that kind of first step on the therapy process. For some individuals, that might be all that they need is some psychoeducation about why I'm feeling, what books do I need to read. But for others, they'll then have more of an idea of what kind of therapist to look for, or whether they need a mentor or a men's group. I think for women, again, this is generalising, but we're more easily say, okay, I'll go and see a therapist. Because we love talking, that's what we do. Our brains are wired for talking. Whereas men, they kind of need to cognitively get it and logically get it and understand the facts first. So I think the explosion of AI in psychoeducation is brilliant for boys and men.
Yeah. I never really thought of it like that. That's good. I think we use stuff at work. We use certain apps that are AI, but they are built to not replace therapy, but kind of get you into a space where you can start to reflect on what's going on the inside. And you put it beautifully, and then work out what kind of therapy you might need, whether it's CBT, whether it's EFT, whether it's psychotherapy. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's really, really positive.
Okay. And then in terms of key foundational things as a child psychologist that you're passionate about bringing awareness to, is there something that's kind of at the forefront for you?
I would say, and it's very popular now in kind of pop psychology as well, but nervous system work. For me, it's all about if we're in anxiety or if we're dysregulated, we're not feeling safe. And so how can we help our body to feel safe? And that's all about the nervous system. And then, we can map that onto attachment patterns and things like that. So I think if we've always got the nervous system at our core, when I do trainings for schools and things, that's always what I start with, is getting the adults and the children and the teachers and parents to identify what is their kind of default stress response. Are they a fighter, flighter, freezer, fawner? And reframing that to be around, it's a survival response, it's positive, it's trying to keep us alive. How can we help? How can we work with what we tend to do? I'm a flighter, so I always have to be busy. And we can work with that and see how we can support ourselves that way. So I think having that awareness about ourselves and our children is foundational. And like I said, it will often link to an attachment style as well.
So it's a bit being aware of what that is.
Yeah. I think it's great for everyone. And, nowadays we're also aware, most of us know what a kind of attachment pattern is or what our nervous system default is. And so there's lots that we can work with on that and then look at what things take away from our ability to be regulated. So,
Yeah. And if you are a parent, I'm throwing myself into this now, right?
Yeah.
If you are a parent, you're a little bit neurospicy and, you kind of have to go on a really massive deep dive on every single topic. Maybe there's some reassurance in saying you really don't. If you want to just have a little overview of something and you identify with it, nowadays you can have a 3 or 4 minute YouTube video. You can have a look at some of your amazing content that you've got out there on Instagram as well to get a little bit of insight and then go, oh, actually that is relevant to my life. I'm going to do a deeper dive now instead of going, I need to do a deep dive of every single thing in order to be a good parent,
Absolutely. And I think that is how we are as a society now. I think bite-sized chunks of information, YouTube videos are really, really powerful, and we don't have to know the whole thing about our nervous system approach to kind of make an impact in our family. We just need one hook, one kind of way that we can just reflect and think, okay, in these situations, that's when I'm at my most kind of flighty or fighty or people-pleasing. What can I do about that,
And do you feel like there are common things that parents struggle with in your experience? Like, are there, like you have some stuff that is kind of on this side of the spectrum, let's say, but then is there stuff that's in the middle that most parents come to you and say, hey, I'm struggling with this particular thing?
Anxiety.
Okay.
Anxiety is so rife for children, and there's lots of different reasons and factors for that. But I think one of the biggest challenges for parents is the wider pressures on society. So one example is cost of living crisis. Even the wealthiest families that I work with, they are struggling. We're all struggling. And so we're having to work more. We're having to be, more present in our professions to earn the money. And that is having a negative impact on children. I see it every day in my work with children. They are seeing their parents less and less and less. And this isn't to guilt parents. I'm one of those parents that is a workaholic. And I have to be really aware of that. But I think I would probably do myself out of a job if parents were more present, if I'm being honest with you. I think that's the key thing, is time and uninterrupted presence away from our phones, away from TV, away from, I went camping over the summer last year and it was probably the best holiday I've ever been on. Not in terms of enjoyment for me.
I was going to say that's a bit of courage right there.
But there was no internet really. The internet was terrible. And I was so present with my children, and we had such a lovely community of other families there. It almost like was stepping back in time. And it was really healing for us as a family. It was amazing. And as soon as one night we stayed in a hotel on the last night, it made me feel really sad because I saw the stark contrast. As soon as we were in the hotel, the TV was on, I was on my phone, Andy, my husband, was on his phone, the kids were watching telly, and we disconnected again. And I think it's the disconnection and it's so insidious and it's so small but ingrained that I think that's what I'm seeing. Sorry, that's a really long answer.
No, it's a great answer, and I think probably very common in households, right? And I like that you brought up the cost of living thing. I didn't really quite think of it like that, but yeah, you're absolutely working your butt off so you can afford things, and so it's much easier to go, oh yeah, have an extra an hour on Roblox, that's fine, because then I've got an hour to get through my admin or whatever. And then you're creating further disconnection, even though at that present time it's exactly what you need in terms of like getting things done.
Yeah, it's a balance, and I think having boundaries with ourselves around technology is just as important as our children having those boundaries as well.
Yeah, mines are like, Dad, your screen time's on again. How come you don't get screen time? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a fair point. It's a fair point. Like,
it is. And it's something I really struggle with and I've got to be aware of myself.
Yes, he takes a deep breath. And then in terms of anxiety, just for people who maybe are new to it or people are struggling and at the early part of their journey, my understanding of it, and I'd love to throw it over to you, is that it is an irrational fear about the future or the near future. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's fear. So fear is really natural. We need it. You know, we've evolved to feel fear. If we didn't have fear, we probably wouldn't be alive. But it's when those fears, as you said, become irrational and they feed into everyday life. So we're noticing that we're kind of fearful pretty much most of the day, or when we wake up, for example. That's when we're dipping into anxiety. And I think that's really important to be aware of, but also the kind of psychobiological factors in that. So, for example, morning anxiety, if you've got a sensitive temperament, you are more likely to feel more anxious in the morning because your cortisol spikes. And so that's really normal. So it's about working with what's going to get your cortisol down. So if you're an adult, it's like, waiting a couple of hours before you have a cup of coffee or something. But for children, it's about having that empathy and compassion and thinking, okay, they're in a cortisol spike, this will come down. And also looking at hormones, so preteens, there's going to be more anxiety coming up there because of the hormones and all of that, and exams and tests and things. So I think we have to be careful around saying our children are anxious children when really a lot of the time it is circumstantial. And when I work with families and schools, we change just a few things, that anxiety is gone.
Yeah, really good point. And it's not that they are anxious children. I like the way you put that. It's they're experiencing anxiety because of X, Y, Z, and it's about really getting to the root cause of what that is.
And for me, when I'm working with families and with myself, I think all anxiety is not feeling safe in the present.
Yeah.
Not being present. And if we can get people being present and feeling safety, whatever that looks like for them, then anxiety just naturally falls away. I think anxiety is built out to be this big complex thing is really quite simple.
That's really good. Yeah, really good. And, I was going to make the point that even when you're doing root level work, we think it has to be this, couple of years long process, whatever, but it could be exactly like you said, just one thing that needs to tweak, and that for that particular person in a bespoke way is going to unlock that level of safety and therefore then reduce the anxiety that's in their life.
Definitely. And I think, there's certain tools that you can get access to those parts of the brain a lot quicker, hypnotherapy, EMDR, those kinds of things that access the subconscious. And it's just flipping it round, really. And then you can see change really quickly.
I know when I'm working with adults, we have a form that we go through, like an induction form, when we're kind of processing through a new participant. And some of the questions that we ask are around sleep, are around how many meals you eat, what kind of calories are getting in, what kind of exercise you do. And you can already see patterns of why people might be feeling a certain way because their lives are so chaotic in terms of what's going on up here and the anxiety, that they forget to get the foundational things in check. And then that unlocks maybe 50% of, what the issue is.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. And I see that myself. The days that I don't get out to go for a run or do exercise, it's not great. And then as soon as I get back into those habits, I'm fine again.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Like 15-minute walk. When you've got an hour, you think the whole hour needs to be done on the admin, but 15-minute walk gives you 45 minutes of absolute like focus and concentration when you're getting things done.
Definitely. I think the foundational bits, the simplicity is the beauty with anything that we're struggling with, really. It's like, get it down to basics. What are you eating? What are you sleeping? All of those things are so important.
Yeah, sometimes, again, I hope they don't watch this because they'll be upset, but like sometimes there's something going on and there's a lot of like, rah, and I'm like, I need to get her a glass of water and something to eat. And just take the bullets, right, until that's been consumed, and all of a sudden,
I had exactly that situation this morning. I actually said to Andy, my husband, just don't talk to me about anything houseworky or whatever problems that you've got until after I've had at least 2 coffees, because I was just so tired, and I thought I just need to, once I've had a coffee, I'll be a lot nicer person. So it's just knowing what our basic needs are in that moment as well.
Yeah, for sure. And question that's come up just kind of while we're thinking about this is, do you think we as a society now, compared to 20 years ago, let's say, have given too many options to children? Is that contributing to the level of anxiety that they might have?
Yeah, I mean, it could well be. I've never thought of it like that. I think, the world is more complex. There's more noise in the world with the internet and choices, even as simple things like schools. Parents have got so much more choice now in terms of what school their child go to. When we were growing up, we just went to the local primary school, done, and we just dealt with it. Now there's so much choice, and I find it's not so much that the children have got so much choice. I think it's how the adults deal with that choice. So for example, with my kids, I would just give them 2 choices of things, because you want them to feel like they've got a sense of agency and control. But I know if I reel off 5 activities to do in the half term, they'll get all stressed. Whereas if I say we're going to go here or here, so I think it's our responsibility as adults. There is more choice, which in one way is amazing, but I think we have to kind of break that down to make it more simplified for our children, so that the burden isn't on them who make these decisions.
Yes, yeah, I like that. And then also realizing that their brains aren't fully formed either. So the way that we make decisions is completely different to the way that they do. And giving them that grace.
Absolutely. And I think, and when they do, we do give them simplified choices. Often the way they decide is a lot more advanced to how we decide, because they're coming from their feeling, their kind of gut. Whereas with us, we like logically, we're thinking about that factor, that factor. Whereas actually they're a lot more simple than we are, in the most beautiful way.
Yeah. If you have your shower now, then you'll have more time to do your homework afterwards. Or if you do your homework now and they're like, no, but I don't feel like doing that, I feel like doing that. And you're like, oh, okay, how do we make this work?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. But I think a lot of what I see is giving back, and I say perceived control, and that sounds really manipulative as a parent, but it is about giving the children perceived control, when really we're still kind of giving them the parameters, but actually they're choosing when they do X and Y.
Yeah, agreed. And I think like in a co-parent setup, well, actually, maybe not even limited to co-parenting, maybe just any parenting. If you've got 2 different parenting styles and you operate differently as well, and you're not united, you're not a team, then that creates more division and more confusion for the child, where they've got 2 choices with one parent maybe, and they've got 18 choices with the other. It's like, well, they may draw to the one with 18 choices, but be completely confused because they feel like there's freedom there. You use perceived freedom of choice or agency, whereas on the other side, actually, it's going to be a lot better. Well, I'm being biased because I'm on this side, right? But like giving them that simple choice kind of releases or frees up their brain so that they can actually go and enjoy or engage with whatever activity that is presented to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think children are very good at understanding, okay, this is how this parent operates and this is how this parent operates. And what you'll see as they grow is that they will gravitate to what gives them better clarity and safety. Children, they're so much more switched on and wise than we give them credit for, that they've probably worked that out already, So I think it's okay to have different approaches to parenting, and sometimes it's inevitable, particularly if you're not co-parenting and you're parallel parenting, or it's really tricky. That's okay, because children, they do understand that people operate differently. And I think as long as they know that when they're with you, they're safe, and when they're with the other parent, they're safe, even though it's different, I think that's okay.
Yeah, that's good. And when I started the podcast, I was married, and then throughout the last 3 years, I've been been through a divorce and out the other side, with all the scars and the wounds that come with that. But the reason I say that, just to give context, is people who haven't been through that. Well, two points. One, the amount of people have reached out because I've shared little snippets is shown me that how common this is. And I think the statistic is like 50% of people end up getting divorced and stuff, which is its own thing. But in terms of from the child's perspective, for me, it's really interesting to see how people are navigating through all of that. And it seems to be, at least in my view, and please bring some insight because you would have had way more exposure to this, is that the divorce is not the issue, it's the conflict between the parents that starts to have a negative effect on children.
Absolutely. Divorce is not the issue. Having a divorce per se is not going to damage a child. The issues come when there's high conflict, and there's one thing that really damages children, it can really dent their sense of self, is when a parent is very negative about another parent to the child, because that child is half the other parent. And so when an adult is criticising the other parent, that child reads it, because they are egotistical to survive, egocentric, sorry, not egotistical. That's not very kind. Children are more egocentric, so they take responsibility for things that they shouldn't. And so when that parent is saying things about the other parent, they'll think, oh, that's about me as well then, because I'm half of that parent. So, and it's hard. I know it's hard because, I've worked with families for years and years and years. But if you can have a safe space to have a rant about the other parent that's totally separate to the children, because it's really important to have that safe space, to have those rants and, get that anger out. But as long as it's not to the children, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you gave an example of anger, but even just the hurt and the brokenheartedness and all that kind of stuff, it's difficult, because if you don't have, and it goes kind of links to the supervision thing that we were talking about earlier on.
Yes.
If you don't have a space, a safe circle of people
Yes.
who aren't stirring the pot, but actually are just there to kind of like be a sounding board or a safe space for you, then inevitably that's going to come out somewhere, right? And that could come out in your parenting style, which is not what we want. It happens. I'm not it happens. We're all only human, but
we're human. Yeah.
We want to try and avoid it as much as possible.
Because children take it, they suck it all up, they absorb it all, and they want to take responsibility and help the parents, and it's really not their responsibility. I remember with my own parents' divorce, and one initiated it more than the other parent, and I remember the parent that was so hurt from it, and I felt like I had to hold them and contain them, when really that was never my job as a 5-7-year-old,
Yeah, really difficult to tread through. And it's funny because when you do meet people who've been on that road, there's an enormous sense of empathy for one another, because it's not something that you could quite explain to people who maybe have not gone down that road.
Absolutely. And I think that support is I think divorce is, I actually think this is quite a controversial thing to say, I actually think divorce is harder in lots of ways than a death of a spouse. I think it's really challenging. That's not to diminish when a spouse passes away, but I think divorce is so difficult for the parents. It's anyone going through it. It requires so much strength and courage and healing and trauma and then healing again. So and having the community of people who are going through it or have been through it is really important.
And that constant nervous system work
Yeah.
Because if I use your comparison, if there's a death, then you're not actually going to see that person again. Whereas when you're in this situation, something did die, the relationship died, right?
Yes.
However, both people who are in that relationship are still having to engage with one another.
Yes.
And if it's amicable, then you hit the lottery. You're in a good space, right?
Yes.
If it's not, then it's really painful, regardless of how much you try to create a, whether you're using parenting apps in order to just make sure that, there's not too much, I don't know what word to use, harassment or what could be perceived as that. So there are safe things available, resources available, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen, because it does take two to tango in that way, in terms of creating peace. And so, at the center of all of this, to your point, is that the child holds some of that responsibility, and that's the last thing we really want for them.
And I think we can support them. Well, number one is having a huge amount of compassion with ourselves, going through that divorce process or living with the co-parenting, parallel parenting, because you could have the best will in the world and the best intentions in the world, but the other person could be really super challenging. And that's not, there's not a lot you can do on that. As long as you're coming from a really good space. And the other point I wanted to make about the children is, I think we can talk to children in more honest ways. I think a lot of parents come to me and they say, how should I talk to my child about this? And they pick up on so much anyway. I think just bringing it out into the open, into the light, and saying that was really tricky, how daddy had to handle that or how mummy handled that. I know that might not have felt right. Just acknowledging it, honestly, it's so healing for children, for you to just say, I acknowledge this is kind of tricky at the moment. We're working on it, but I see that this might not be sometimes really nice for you to experience. That is so validating for children.
Yeah, that's really helpful, actually. Yeah, just so it's not like, oh yeah, everything's going to be all right, don't worry, and
because children know when the children know when we're struggling, when we're hurt, and when we're struggling. And so it's just saying, oh, mummy's struggling a bit today, but it's fine, you're safe, but I was struggling a little bit with something, and I know that might not feel nice for you, but I'm okay. Just bringing things out into the light is really important for children.
Yeah, I think so. And then also to apologize, right? Like, I'm so sorry, that made you feel that particular way. It wasn't my intention. And actually, how can we work through this together? Give me some input, as a child. Oh, Dad, I just needed this, or I don't know, or whatever. And then you go, okay, at least we're acknowledging, we're kind of being present, to your point earlier on as well, in that moment. And then, I mean, again, it's a difficult journey to navigate, but it's constantly trying to say, okay, I'm the parent here. I'm here to hold a safe space, not to
Absolutely.
That whole transactional analysis model where, you know your role, and therefore stay in that role as much as you possibly can.
Absolutely. And I think as parents, I just want to say we're so hard on ourselves. I think our generation are probably the most hard on ourselves that we've ever been. And in one way, it's great because we're very reflective. We take responsibility. We apologize to our children. But we are not responsible for everything and the struggles our children go through, because they have their own temperament, they have their school life, they interact with other people as well. And I think just give ourselves some credit. For myself, for example, if either of my parents, even now I'm in my 40s, and they came to me and said, I'm really sorry about how I handled that. Oh my goodness, that would lift a huge weight off my shoulders. That hasn't happened, and I've dealt with that myself. But the fact that we're doing it in real time live with our children and apologising, that's huge. Even for that, we should give ourselves a pat on the back for.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, we are very aware, aren't we? Not just this immediate generation, but actually the one slightly under us as well, like really aware of, okay, maybe I need to balance this out. And of course it comes down to character and personality style, and a lot of people, will be driven by ego or, just avoidant attachment, whatever. But, having that sense of, ability to reflect is more common than it was before.
It is, and it's a great thing, but it comes with its dangers, and the dangers are beating ourselves up, and we've just got to be really mindful of that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm aware that we use the term co-parenting there, and we did say parallel parenting as well. What's the difference between co-parenting, parallel parenting, and counter-parenting, or if there's any other ones that I've missed out.
Just from my own experience, I think co-parenting is where a couple who've separated are able to parent their children in a way that's not too dissimilar to how it was when they were together. It's just they don't live together, but they go to school plays together, they go to parents' evening together, and I can see that working really well. It's not always possible. It's not hugely frequent, to be honest with you. I see a lot more of parallel parenting where one of the parents is slightly trickier, so to use. I don't want to overuse the word narcissism because it's used so much in our society. But if you were married to a narcissist, then I would say you have to parallel parent because there's just no way that you can co-parent because they just make it too difficult. Say if you're just dealing, the other parent is a bit trickier. They've got their own mental health issues and things, then you kind of have to parallel parent for the safety of the children, for their stability. And so that's trickier. And for some families, like you said, it's using apps and things like that, or it's having a kind of mediator person in the middle who arranges drop-offs and things like that. So that's more challenging. And then counter-parenting, I suppose, is it's the most destructive. And I don't tend to see it so much. I've only seen it a few times in situations where I've been working with children, but it's mostly the parallel parenting. I think with counter-parenting and where it's very destructive is usually when it's quite soon after the separation, or when another partner, when the ex-partner meets someone else. Those kind of things is when it kind of bubbles up. But I think most of the time it does then go back to parallel parenting.
Okay. All right. I know it's a big topic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, I completely agree with you. If you are dealing with someone with narcissistic personality disorder, not someone with narcissistic traits, but with an actual issue there, parallel parenting is probably the safest way moving forward, because if you do try and co-parent with someone who is not able to negotiate, be reasonable, looks for ways to create more division, then actually by being in that or being open to that, you're actually teaching your children the wrong things as well. Like you're saying that my boundaries are not important, and
absolutely,
and then we get into that whole thing around structure and routine and all sorts of bits and bobs. Okay,
absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with parallel parenting. I see it work really, really well with the families I work with.
Okay, all right. Is there anything that you would say to parents? I know you've kind of, let me pick up some of the stuff that we've talked about already in terms of us being too hard on ourselves, us not having a playbook, right? I mean, we can read some books, but every, parent dynamic with a child is going to be unique and different. So I've picked up that as well. Is there anything else that you would say to either a new parent or someone who's been a parent for a little while as a fresh injection of like, guys, don't forget, this is the point?
Oh gosh, there's so much. So no, I'll try and keep it to 2 bullet points.
Okay.
First bullet point is, it's great to have, there's so much information out there, but actually listening to yourself and your intuition and gut, there's so much power in that. So that's number one. Number two, if you're about to become a parent, or if you are a parent, cast your mind back to when you were a child. And honestly, this is so powerful. I've done this with dads. Write a letter to that child, acknowledging what they received that was positive and what they didn't receive growing up, and make sure you give your children everything that you didn't receive. And have that reflection of what really worked for you, because we've all got positives and negatives from our childhood, and there's some positive things that I bring in that was great, and there was other things that I think, okay, I'm going to try not to repeat that pattern, that cycle. And so and it's really emotive, like if you just even get a photograph of yourself when you were 3 or 4 or 5 and write a letter to that child, it's really powerful.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to put that on my action list.
It's so powerful. And I have borrowed it from another psychologist, Dr. Becky Kennedy. She's got a great book, Good Inside, and it's one of the activities that she does with her parents. And it's basically inner child healing. That's what we need to do, is that inner child healing. And you can call it that, or you can just call it a letter to my younger self. whatever sits best for whoever you're working with.
Yeah, because I think what you're talking about there speaks to, there's a few different names for it, but let's say generational trauma.
Yeah.
And so if I was talking to my sister about this yesterday, actually, if you don't slay the dragons in front of you, then all you're doing is passing on the sword to your child to do. So actually, and they might not, so it goes to the next generation, if you're someone who wants children, right? So actually, isn't the most courageous thing that we can do in our lifetime to face those demons and lead by example so that they don't have to, because they'll have a whole bunch of other ones that they've got to deal with anyway.
Absolutely. And I think looking at the patterns that were present in your own childhood, that your own parents carried, is really, really powerful. Even if you do nothing else but that, will really change the trajectory of your child's future. So yeah, that's the most powerful thing, I think.
Phenomenal. And it takes a whole bunch of bravery to get into that emotional space, doesn't it? And start that work.
It really does, actually. And I think parents don't give themselves enough credit for doing that. I think this generation as well, I know I keep saying it, but I think this generation and below are very good at that. And actually, it's really exhausting to parent your child whilst healing yourself. And it takes a lot of bravery and courage. So I'm really proud of all of the parents I work with. I think they're incredible.
Beautiful. Well, I want to thank you so much for your content, actually, because it's been really helpful to me on my journey of parallel parenting. And I think there's been so many times where you've put something out there and it's really made me reflect and think. And often, and you can go back to woo-woo land and spirituality, and like it's just come at the right time as well. And so I just want to say thank you as a parent just for the work that you're doing, and for anyone that's listening or watching, where can they find your work? What's the best way to
best
see
way
content?
To find me is just on Instagram, so Dr Katie Barge, and I'm there doing all my bits and bobs. So yeah, come and join me on there. I love having a community. I need to get back to doing lives because I love the Q&As. I love knowing what topics are really relevant for people right now that they're struggling with. So yeah, it's a great community.
Fantastic. And I'll put a link in the description below so that people can just find you really easily.
Thank you.
And the other thing I was going to ask you, if they wanted to work with you, do you work privately? Do you work specifically with schools?
Yeah, I work privately. I work specifically with schools. So if you go to my Instagram page, there's links to contact me by email and I'll get back to you that way. So yes, I work with people in lots of different ways, online, in person.
Fantastic. And I love that you're a mum as well. So you're not talking theory, you've got practical experiences.
Well, yes, and I'm not perfect. It's a daily battle. It's a daily challenge.
Well, I also want to say thank you for bearing with me today. I know we've had a lot of technical issues trying to record today, so I appreciate your patience and kindness in that area as well.
You're so welcome, Rix. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I'd love to have you back again, and maybe we can tackle a big issue. Because I know today was about people getting to know you and all the incredible insights that you can bring from a perspective of courage. But maybe there's one common thing, maybe anxiety might be the thing, or something else that we could have a look at and sort of unpack as well in the future. So yeah,
definitely. I would love to. Thank you.
Brilliant. Have you, Katie, subscribed to the Going Courage podcast on YouTube yet?
I need to. I'm so disorganised at the moment. I'm going to. You've given me the nudge.
I've given you the nudge, and hope if you're listening and you found this episode somewhere online, please do go over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, or Spotify, Apple, follow away, and you'll get some more insights from incredible Going Courage guests as well. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. I'm going to bid you farewell from rainy Staines today. I don't know what it's like over there.
Yeah, it's rainy, it's miserable. So, thank you for having me, and happy Friday.
Happy Friday. All right. And if you're listening to this online or watching online, I just want to say from myself and Katie, whatever's in front of you, just keep moving forward and go in courage. I'll see you on the next episode.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, really hope you enjoyed that episode, and I hope there was something there that you can take away and reflect on. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can do so publicly on YouTube via the comments, or if you prefer to be more private, you can DM me on Instagram, and the handle is @GoEncourage. You can also find links to everything at the website, which is www.goencourage.com. You can find a copy of the Courage Journal, links to TikTok, Instagram, and all the places that you can find Go Encourage online. You can also have a look at the upcoming Go Encourage blog, which is coming soon. So yeah, definitely do check that out. But my encouragement to you is whatever you're doing, whatever you're going through, keep moving forward and to go in courage. I'll see you on the next episode.